Bob Dylan is celebrated as the quiet poet of American music, the man who turned folk into fire. Yet behind the legend lies a surprisingly dark side, feuds with some of the very artists who shared, copied, or challenged his genius. At 84, Dylan revealed 6 bands and musicians he came to despise after private insults, stolen ideas, and a few moments that turned admiration into anger. Some of these rivalries began with a single careless sentence, small sparks that ignited long-standing fires. 1. The Byrds, the cover band that crossed the line. Dylan reportedly first heard the Byrds' 1965 version of Mr. Tambourine Man and muttered, "What is this?" Their pop-friendly edit shortened his sprawling lyrics into a 2-minute single. To Dylan, it wasn't interpretation, it was vandalism. When Roger Mickn approached him backstage expecting praise, Dylan quietly said, "You ruined my song." Despite the band introducing his work to millions, Dylan felt betrayed by the sanitization of his raw poetic vision. Accorded to Joni Mitchell, the artist who humiliated him. Their feud erupted in 2010 when Mitchell publicly declared Bob as a fake, accusing him of building a myth on borrowed styles. Dylan reportedly considered this personal, not professional humiliation. Mitchell mocked his nasal singing, turning private envy into public derision. Their early admiration had soured over decades, leaving a bitter rift that never healed. 3. Eric Clapton, the blues battle. Dylan clashed with Clapton in the 1970s over authenticity in the blues. When Clapton cut off a guitar solo Dylan requested and later implied Dylan lacked true understanding of the genre, Dylan walked out, harmonica left on the chair. Their paths crossed at tribute events and rehearsals, but the chemistry remained ice-cold. Dylan saw Clapton as prioritizing technique over truth, while Clapton believed Dylan hid behind myth rather than skill. For Anton IV, the Beatles, the band Dylan never forgave. Initially allies, Dylan grew wary as the Beatles adopted his lyrical style. Paul McCartney's Yesterday marked a turning point with Dylan dismissing it as structurally unoriginal. John Lennon retaliated privately, parodying Dylan's vocal style. By the 1966 tours, the press stoked the rivalry, branding them competing poets of a generation. Mutual resentment lingered, subtle but persistent, even decades later. 5. Neil Young, the rival Dylan resented. When Young rose to prominence with politically charged songs and declared himself the voice of a generation, Dylan saw it as claiming a reward he had earned through years of struggle. The feud intensified during the 1980s when Dylan publicly mocked Young's experimental trance album, while Young retaliated on stage with distorted versions of Dylan classics. Despite occasional polite interactions, the rivalry simmered for decades. 60 Ice's Z Gabba, the non-M musical outlier. Unlike the others, Gabba's feud wasn't about music but cultural clash. Dylan reportedly found her celebrity persona irritating because she never attempted depth or craft. She simply played herself. A stark contrast to Dylan's belief in authentic expression. While this may have been more amusement than true anger, she made it onto Dylan's personal list of figures whose presence rubbed him the wrong way. These 6 stories revealed Dylan not only as a poetic genius, but also as fiercely protective of his art and identity. Some feuds arose from theft, some from perceived disrespect, others from the clash of ideals. In every case, Dylan demanded authenticity and honesty, refusing to accept imitation, superficiality, or ego dressed as talent. His private judgments remind us that for a man who changed music forever, the smallest offense could feel monumental.